Welcome to this CAM tutorial on managing data models, components, SQL tables, and Hibernate Java Persistence API. So we're going to introduce you to the concepts and practice here of using CAM and CAM templates in the context of your information persistence layer and models. So the agenda today is the data management concepts themselves. What is it exactly we're looking to achieve, and how are we doing that? What is the semantic content? How are these templates working? What is the naming and design rules? How are they applicable? And what analytic reports are available? And then once we understand the concepts, we move on to actually delivering the persistence components, how to use the renamer tools, generating the Hibernate JPA, and these CDTs, which are a flavor of Hibernate JPA, and exporting to SQL tables. And then wrapping up with the documentation and reports that are available, how to view models and generate the reports. And then the last segment is actual demonstration using the CAM editor. So we're essentially doing this in two parts. The first part here is slideware, so that you can understand the landscape and how all the moving parts are interacting, and then we actually show you it using the editor. So the first part is what does it mean to do data management? What is the life cycle? How do these templates play in? And what are the semantics involved? So we're looking here at a typical data management lifecycle where you have source systems. You want to reverse engineer those using the drag and drop builder that's part of the CAM editor. And then once you've reverse engineered those components, you want to be able to manage them within the editor environment. And of course, be able to generate from that the actual target components, the Hibernate, the entity definitions for the SQL tables, models and documentation, and also the components that are involved from those source systems, being able to store those in a dictionary. So that's the overall life cycle. Now we move to the semantics and how this is achieved. So if we look at the overall landscape for information and processes, it can be summarized as this diagram here. And what most people are familiar with is the three across the middle here: the structure of the information, the content model of the components, and then any annotations and definitions associated with those. That's how XSD schema works. In addition, you have business rules about the structured components, and then the data model. And so what we're looking to achieve is to use the CAM template to manage all of these five pieces. And so if we move to the template itself, we can see it's composed of the structure, the rules, and the documentation. So we have those three semantic pieces in play. We're able to connect to SQL sources from the CAM editor of the source systems, so we can store that as XML. CAM itself is obviously the content assembly mechanism, an Oasis standard. It's WYSIWYG, simple XML. The pieces are easily parsed and programmatically handled because we have separated out the structure, rules, and definitions. And so you're able to use your familiar XML tools in this environment. Nevertheless, obviously we want to show you how this all works. And so the next piece that we need to understand are the naming and design rules. So it's not enough to just pull components from your source systems or your schemas, or even create new components yourself without following consistent naming and design rules. And so CAM is able to coach and do this with you. And so essentially, whatever component you're considering, there's three pieces. There's the item itself, the name. There's the context it's being used in. And then there's this thing called the representation term. So how does this all work? Well, we can look at an example. So if we take person and person name, so the item is person, the components are the various pieces of the name, and then the context is the actual piece within that, so things like language. But it's not enough to say language, because then you have to ask yourself the question, what? And so the answer to that is then you need to associate a term. And there's a set list of these, and CAM will check for these. And so in this case, we're using language code to denote the language that the person uses. And then obviously things like verified details, previous name, those are Booleans, and so on. So the idea is that all the components that you are utilizing within your CAM template conform to these naming and design rules. And to help you with this, we have automated naming and design rule analytics. This is the template evaluation report that you can run. It will show you how well you're doing. As you can see here, it flags things that don't pass the representation term rules. It flags things that are missing definitions, and so on. There's a raft of other checks that it makes, and there's a separate tutorial on that if you want to dig into that. But for now, obviously the goal is just to get a score of 10 for the components. So let's have a look at the next piece. So once you've got your components, you've analyzed them using the naming design rules, you've arrived to this point where you've got consistent components, you're avoiding duplication, and you're enhancing reuse because now you can build dictionaries of these components that are searchable. So you can find out where in your various tables you're using things and make sure that they're defined the same way. And the template then is acting as the documentation of your information model. You can share this with your partners very easily. There's a tool that allows you to compare between templates and dictionaries, so you can align to domain vocabularies. But once you've put all this investment in, then you want to be able to go from this model semantic view to the actual components themselves. So the next section we're going to have a look at this persistence component delivery and the functionality the editor provides you with. So we've seen that the life cycle here is we have the source systems. We can reverse engineer and manage our components using the IDE. So that then the next piece of the puzzle is how does the renamer play into this? Well, the renamer helps you align to the naming design rules. So it will automatically expand abbreviations, create uppercase camel names, and fix a whole bunch of invalid characters and bad practices that it may encounter. So when you're using the renamer in the drag and drop mode, you simply toggle the drag and drop tool into designer mode as you're viewing the SQL tables in the existing application systems. Drag them across into the CAM template, and it will automatically run the naming design rules for you. And then the second mode is the reverse. So you've got a CAM template that you've either created from scratch or you've imported from an existing schema. And now what you want to do is create SQL database mappings. So you want the the naming and design rule mapper to go the other way around and to create uppercase underscore typical SQL DB naming conventions from those uppercase camel XML names. So you can use the naming tool in two modes to help you align what's going on in your template with your SQL databases. So this is showing you that first where you're going to import the SQL definitions. So you can see on the right hand side we're using the database browser that's part of the CAM editor. We have it toggled into designer mode, and we can pick the tables, and this is using JDBC connection through to your existing source systems. And on the left hand side you can see that the uppercase underscore SQL names have been converted to naming design rule conformant uppercase camel. And once you have that, you're then in a position to generate your target format. So you want Hibernate. You can go ahead and create additional SQL tables. So if you make changes in here, you can then generate new SQL tables and so on. And as you can see here, you can have multiple tables inside the CAM template, so you can manage your application that way. And next, we're looking at the detail of actually creating the Hibernate JPA. So from the export menu, we're exporting the template as an XSD schema. We're picking the Hibernate JPA option. So that will generate a full Hibernate JPA schema. The other alternative is if you're using a tool like Appian and you want to generate their CDT, which is a flavor of Hibernate, you can go into the ref field in the CAM template and insert Appian.jpa, which will tell the process that that's the specific dialect that you wanted generated. And the ID field should conform to the data store name that you're using along with the SQL tables. And so that's it. And you hit export, it will generate the Hibernate JPA for you, or the CDT. And of course, in this example, we imported in an XSD structure, and we're using it that way. So the next piece of it is going the reverse. So we've got an existing XSD, and so we have those uppercase camel names, and now we want to use the DB mapper. So you go under Tools, a Renamer, this menu pops up, you select SQL DB Mapping, click OK, and you will see the result where those SQL table mappings are added to your CAM template, and then you can simply run the export, which is the next piece. So in order to run the export, you're going to go under File, Export, Template as a model this time. We're going to be enhancing that in future releases of the editor to have a specific export for SQL, but right now it's under the model export, and you'll pick the MySQL DDL option, and you can see here that we've gone from the CAM template to the generated SQL. And in this case, we didn't run the renamer, so we've got uppercase camel names in the MySQL, so you can see you can use it both ways. Now, next piece, once you've consolidated and built out the tables that you want as in your CAM template, so you'll notice here we have a whole set of tables, and the root element, by the way, should be the database name that you want overall. So you can, inside the CAM template, we have that database, and then each of the tables underneath that. And now you can go in and create, using the tools, dictionaries, create dictionary option here, and it will build that complete dictionary for you. Again, there's a separate tutorial on dictionary handling, so I'm not going to go into all that detail and how you can then set up that dictionary using the editor and reuse those components and search them and everything else. That's handled elsewhere. But the bottom line is now you're able to decouple those source systems because we can generate for you Hibernate and SQL. You're now not tied to a particular back-end database technology. You have flexibility in how you can deploy your persistence layer. Okay, the next piece is documentation and models. So again, you've got your dictionaries, you've created your SQL, you've created your Hibernate, now you want some documentation. And so you have the ability to view the tabular documentation. So from the CAM editor, you'll see View, Tabular Documentation. Click on that, and it will generate a HTML report for you. We're going to see an example in a moment. You can also build UML models using the file export template as a model, and you can create visual mind map diagrams if you're using FreeMind or a similar mind map viewer. And again, there's a separate tutorial on doing all that. The quality assessment report's really important. That will analyze your dictionary components and again flag duplicates, misnamed, inconsistencies, things like if it says it's a date in the name but it's defined as an integer, and so on. So that helps you get a clean and robust data model. Here's the examples of the mind map viewing. So you can see here we've got each of the tables. Then in green we have the uppercase camel XML component, and then in brown we have the schema table and column definition laid out. And again, the same information is in the tabular documentation, but it's a different layout, and this is designed for your data analyst to be able to just read. It's in plain English, so there's no code in there, and they can just review it for consistency and conformance. So that's it for the slideware. Now we're going to walk you through the actual demonstration itself and show you this working. Welcome to part 2 here, the demonstration. So here we're going to run the CAM editor, and this is running under Ubuntu. So I'm just going to launch the editor here. And so now we're in the IDE, and the first thing that we need to do is create a new template. We're going to give it a name here, and remember this is the database name, so this is sample database. And so now we have to save this, so we're going to just push it into temp, demo db. Okay, and here we have the root element for our sample database. So now the next thing that you want to do is go ahead and change the ID here to something that matches the data stores that you're using. So I'm going to use cam_db. And then this reference ID, if you're going to be creating other than a Hibernate JPA, so if you want to create an Appian style JPA, you're going to put that there in the reference field. And then you can just go ahead and save that. And so now we need to add in our actual database tables. So for this, we're going to go over here to the database browser, click on the connector, and select our existing database connection. Obviously, if you don't have one, you're going to use the manage to set one up. So connect to my data store here, and here I have cam_tb, and I can navigate in, I can see my tables, and the one I'm going to use here for the demonstration is the agreement table. So you can see we have uppercase underscore SQL names and fields with a whole bunch of types. So the next thing I need to do is switch from mapping mode to designer mode. So now I'm in database designer mode. I can select the table and drag it and drop it over here. And now the DB renamer ran, and you can see that from the SQL names we now have camel case upper names, and you can see that abbreviations have been expanded and so forth. And so the other piece of the puzzle is that you can see these little gray dots. When you can see those, it's telling you that there is a database mapping. So if I right click on this and do edit annotation, I can see here is my database mapping from the store, table, and column. So we have the round trip relationship in there. And you can also notice that if I look at this field, we have, in addition to the DB mapping, we have a key ref as well. And so that's telling us that this field is an ID field, and we can see that the little ID symbol, the key ref symbol, is showing in the user interface as well. And so some additional things we might want to review now. You notice that the definition for insurance year in the database is integer. So in fact, we know that is really 4 digits numeric. So if we click on item rules, we can see that the default rule was added here, and we can edit this rule. And so what we want to do is change that, and we want 4 numeric digits and not allowing trailing zeros. And we can go ahead and do the same thing for this field as well. And so on. So that's showing you using the rule editor wizard. You can also see down here that the rules are cataloged, and you can see that the lengths have been correctly brought over from the existing SQL definition as well. And then here we have a date field and whether the field is optional or required. So all those rules are part of the template. So again, we can go ahead and save that now. And if you wanted to add an additional rule, there's actually the Add Rule dialog here, and the rule shortcut to make things optional here as well. So you can quickly control what you're doing. So let's assume that we want to add a new field to this definition. So we go to the table element, right click, and we have add child element. So what's missing is the agreement value. And remember, we're using the naming and design rules, so that should conform. And we want a decimal field. We're going to put an annotation in. This is the total value of the agreement. Okay, and so now you'll see that this has been placed at the bottom. And what we want to use is the move element. Click on that. Click on that again. And now we have this here. The next thing that we want to do is edit the annotations, and we want to add a new annotation, a custom one, and just say that this was added. The other thing that you can put in is changed, if you changed a definition. So this is new element. Finish. Now, save the template again. The other thing that you notice is there's not a grey dot on this field because we don't have the DB mapping. So this would apply as well if you had a new schema that you didn't have an existing SQL table for. So what you saw before was when we used the drag and drop, the renamer added the created the names for all these components based off the SQL name and added the DB mappings in. Now we want to go the other way around. We created a new element, so we want to run tools, renamer. Renamer mode is SQL DB mapping, and now we're going to add a DB mapping for that component. So we can click OK, reload that, store it in temp, and now you can see that if we edit this, you can see that the DB mapping has been added, and so we have that as well now, and you can see that it created the SQL underscore uppercase convention. So now we can save the template, and so the next step, now we have our database, is we want to go ahead and export this. We're going to pick the template as a model, so we don't yet have an explicit SQL menu option. Go into output format, and we'll see MySQL DDL, and click OK. That's been placed in the temp folder, and so if we navigate to the temp folder, here we can see our files. We can open this with the editor, and you can see we've created all these tables with the correct lengths, definitions, and so on. And because we added that annotation, it also created the alter table. So that's important if you're not creating tables from scratch and you want to have the updates only to the tables. So you have that capability to control that as it's generating the SQL. Okay, let's navigate back to the editor here. And so now we've created the SQL script. You could run that in the MySQL developer. It would add that database and so on. The next piece that you need is the Hibernate, sorry, I clicked that wrong, the Hibernate schema. So we're going to select Export Template as an XSD schema. Come down here, click on Mode, and we have the Hibernate JPA mode here. And simply click OK. That's been written to the selected directory. So again, we'll go to temp, and we can see we have our tempdb.xsd generated here. Open that in the editor, and now we're looking at the Hibernate binding. And so we can see that we have the keys columns denoted. We can see that we have the lengths and so on. This is varchar 35, this is varchar 65. So we have complete control here over what's happening through the Hibernate to match what we've defined in the SQL, including the column names and everything else. So we have the SQL and we have the matching Hibernate binding. Okay, so if we switch back now to the editor, we can run the evaluate tool and see how we've done in terms of the naming and design rules. So I missed this step out. This would be preferable to do this before you do the generation, but of course you could just cycle through. So what we can see here is that the components that I extracted from the SQL table didn't have any comment annotations on them, so it's asking us to add those descriptions. It's also checked some interoperability factors, and it's noted that you're using a code, but you didn't provide any code values. So, and then it allows you to be able to do a spell check down here by breaking out the component names. So that's that report. And obviously you can choose to fix what you want to out of that, or just take it as is, as you have it. Your choice. Similarly, dictionaries, you can go ahead and create the dictionary. Simply click OK, and your dictionary is generated. Again, there's a whole tutorial on using dictionaries, so I'm not going to dig into that detail. The next piece that you may want to do is view the tabular documentation. So running that option from the view menu, you can see we generate this nice report. We have all the DB mapping information. We have that this is a numeric format of 999 for the reinsurance year, and so on. So this is something that your data analysts can easily review and check that this conforms to what they want. Again, viewing the template as a mind map. Now we're looking at the model view. If we click that, you have to download and configure the FreeMind editor separately. Again, we have the details on that on the wiki site. And this is what you'll get. So we have the table here. We have the components. The question mark tells you it's optional. The bar tells you that there's a restriction on the content, in this case value, And you can see it's also put this one in green because it spotted that we've said that that was something we added. And then you have the database mapping there. And if we click on the little minus symbol, go here, click on the little minus symbol, it will remove those and just show you the components. So you have the ability to use this tool to save PDFs, JPEGs, share documentation, etc. With your data analysts. I can click that. And so that, I believe, concludes what we needed to show you in terms of using CAM here, the editor tools, to manage your database definitions, be able to round trip through generating MySQL and the matching Hibernate JPA definitions, and then utilize those. Okay, thank you for watching this tutorial.